Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, and welcome to Energy Speaks Back, powered by B2B Energy. My name is Paul Webb, and I'm the founder of B2B Energy, and I'm your host. And weekly, I present to you energy experts from around the world. Welcome to episode 116. And our purpose, as always, is to provide a good understanding of energy management knowledge from around the world, which is available today for us to deliver savings that impact on our planet. We would like to thank Esther Energy, who are our certificate partners. My guest today fights climate change with innovation because he has a 5-year-old. He is the founder of Blue Horizon Consulting, taking client opportunities within startups in clean tech. He delivers on the sustainability, clean energy and social equity outcomes. So without any further ado, I give you Matt Macunas. Good evening from me, and it's good early afternoon from you, Matt. How are you today?
I'm doing well. Good evening to you from the right coast of the United States and New England.
Brilliant. And you were saying it's between New York and Boston, is that right?
Equidistant, about 100 miles in either direction.
All
Centers of
right.
gravity right around us.
It's funny when you say things like that in America because 100 miles is still quite a long way from, that's a fair old trot, isn't it?
It's a fair trot for a state the size of Connecticut. We're not like the Western states that are just big squares, 1,000 miles across. 100
Yeah.
miles is a trot. Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
Yeah. And what's the weather doing where you are? It looks like it's sunny there. Is it bright this morning?
It's beautiful and sunny right now. I just took the hound for a walk, and I'm actually overdressed right now. I'm sure I'll start sweating halfway through this. But yeah, beautiful weather for the month of May.
Brilliant. And have you noticed any differences this time of year in with the seasons in where you are?
Actually, you know what I've started noticing in the past few years is the seasons and the weather have not really marched in lockstep anymore. Like there's that old song about hoping for a white Christmas with all the snow, and the snow doesn't really arrive until January or later
Yeah, yeah,
nowadays. You're in the fall, and it seems like the August weather stretches well into October. It's like everything's starting to offset
yeah.
by a month or two. I'm not exactly sure if that's climate related or not. I don't want to overstate, but we know there's some stuff going on.
There's something going on, isn't there? We do see that. One of my telltales, and I was talking about this the other day. We have when I was younger, it used to April showers. Okay, so in April, rain. But 1 minute it'd be sunny, then it'll rain. 1 minute sunny, then rain, then sun, then rain. And it used to be known as April showers. We seem to still get that in May now. So it's a shift. See if we've got that shifting a little bit.
That's consistent with the shift. I was just noticing that the
Yeah,
other day. All the rain seems to arrive in May instead of April now.
yeah.
Exactly.
And you get that in the US then? The April
I've
shower type
observed
thing?
locally. Yeah,
Wow.
we know the rhyme here, and yet all the rain seemed to arrive once May arrived instead of April. I've been noticing that the last few years.
And I
Yeah.
don't know whether this is an age thing, but I seem to be clocking the temperatures more. Every morning, I sort of think, oh, we're creeping up. We're creeping up. So May, you're heading towards summer now, but it doesn't seem to be creeping up that quick. But we still are. I still find myself recording it in my head. Oh, it's getting warmer. And I notice it now. It's obviously today I've been out. I've had a shirt on, no coat. First time this year, no coat. Little bit nip in the air, but I still force myself not to wear a coat.
You just, even without being a professional climate scientist, what is it, the El Nino phenomenon?
Yeah,
There's something along those lines this year. And even if you're not to that professional level, you have it in a karmic sense, like, it was a nice warm winter. Yeah, we're going to pay for it in the summer.
yeah, yeah. Do you know what? We could talk for ages on this because I've got every time you're mentioning something, I'm thinking of something else.
Yeah,
But we can, can't we? Definitely can.
we could
So
we could fill the hour. We didn't
definitely,
prescript, so we could just talk about the weather and
yeah.
yeah.
That's an English thing, though, isn't it? So Matt, we have met through LinkedIn. Obviously, we've had some exchange. First time today, so thank you for joining us. That we've actually engaged. So, you know, I'm going to get to know more about you. This is like us having a one-to-one as well, which is brilliant. So, for the benefit of the audience and for myself, can you give us some background to yourself? So, what you're doing in the industry now, and maybe touch on your origin story regarding where you've come from.
Thank you. So I guess I'll take it chronologically, my own chronological, reverse chronological to yourself. Um, the earliest I could think of with energy, I suppose, um, my grade school science fair, I was measuring the electrical draw from all the household appliances and comparing their efficiencies. And it
Mhm.
was probably like a stealth sort of chore for my dad at the time, who just wanted data, but I was still able to do it. Later on, it took into my early 20s when I kind of congealed for me, crystallized the idea that, yeah, I want to be involved in renewable energy, climate change, even though that might not have been the term du jour back then.
Yeah.
Uh, it's a worthy endeavor, kind of dedicating the rest of one's life to doing something along those lines in your own minuscule way, shifting the inertial mass of how humanity operates. In my own tiny way, I wanted to do something with that, and I thought that was a
Right.
kind of worthy endeavor. So since then,
How many years ago was that?
so in my early 20s, that would have been, well, about 20 years ago.
Wow.
Yeah, so cut me in half, and that's when I started. So now early 40s, got the family now, got the house, which some of my energy improvement ambitions, kind of had to wait for that, right? Solar on the roof, do the large scale efficiency job. Um, Driving a Nissan Leaf for the past, I don't know, 8 years, 7 years, a
Right.
few different models, but still the
Hmm.
old school model of the Leaf. Um, Worked in and around government, especially the legislative branch, for about 7 years. I was a staffer there for elected officials, so I kind of got to see every angle of society, right? And that's when I really got the energy bug. Of all the committees doing policy work there, I was always tuned in the most on energy.
Right.
I wanted to know how that worked. Um, did a little bit of consulting after that, and then moved quickly into being a legislative go-between for our state's first, or rather the US's first green bank, like a clean energy financing entity that mobilizes private capital into project deployment for like commercializable clean tech.
Right.
So I was there for another 7 years, I'd say. And then starting last year, I formed a consultancy to work with clean tech startups and also associations in like the solar and battery space. Um, all around the world, ironically. Like you think it would be right in my backyard. I
Yeah. Yeah.
do some mentoring with the regional accelerator for New England, the largest one there, but I also work with a few other startups. Um, let's see, one develops electric vehicle charging hubs
Right.
combined with like amenities and on-site renewables, like an Uber zero emissions sort of construction development, and they're starting to scale with their property acquisitions. Another provides climate science data to companies to inform them of like their financial risk exposure, right? As we were just talking about the weather for the first 10 right here.
Yeah.
And, okay, what happens when the weather starts changing on your gold mine or on your suite of residential properties, right?
Hmm.
Or hotels? Like, how many days a year are you going to be closed for across 11 different reasons, right?
Yeah.
Because that's going to really matter financially as you start marching
Yeah.
decade by decade into the future. And so giving them predictions on that risk. Another one out of Africa, actually, they're developing like a blockchain sort of communications system for carbon crediting, um, which is on its way. I was a big enthusiast for a little while on leading my own project when it came to developing carbon credits from like electric vehicle charging data sets. So I've got a little bit of background there. Granted, the usual advice, reduce your own emissions loading of the atmosphere first before you start buying others.
Mm.
carbon credits, but still, some market fluidity right there. And actually, a few of them are like that. Another does something very similar. An outfit from well across the world helps others develop carbon credits from electric vehicle charging data sets. And another company is developing like a digital reward system for people who fulfill micro actions, like small projects to fulfill UN Sustainable Development Goals.
Right.
Plastics cleanup, litter cleanup, tree planting, that sort of thing. Trying to figure out if you can quantify and then place a value on that and then reward people for that. So it's all over the map in terms of what I'm involved with right now. It's very different from my work in and around government before, but it's kind of fun for that same reason. It's
Yeah.
much early stage, right? Than the commercializable tech that I used to deal with. So, getting the full sweep of it right
How
now.
far does the startup take? How we talk a lot about startups. Where how long you they form the company, you help them with the ideas. How far do you take them along the journey before when does the startup stop becoming a startup? If that is the right thing I'm meant to be asking.
Good question. You know, some of them are formed just by PhD students, and yet
Yeah,
we have literally invented a technology right here, right? And so now they need like some business acumen to start
yeah,
advising. We don't know what contracts looks like. What's an equity? We don't know what equity means.
yeah,
And so there's that angle of things, which is very early stage, more like the inventors. Um, there's folks who've got some acumen with it, like developers who will put teams together, like general contractors. Um, there's well, people with great big ambitions that just need to land the money in some way or another, whether it's
yeah,
developing their book of business or considering whether to sell off pieces of their company for investor equity. So it is kind of all over the place in terms of the folks I deal with. A few of them are much more mature and they know what they're doing, they know what their company is and what their goals are. Um, you know, I assume there's probably some point out there between pre-seed funding,
yeah,
seed funding, Series A. By the time you get to Series X, whatever that is, Series A, B, C, when you're raising millions of dollars from the market and starting to apportion partitions of your company off as equity in exchange for millions of dollars, you're probably not a startup anymore. But I don't know if there's a clear dividing line on that. You might have interviewed smarter podcast guests than I who've got
no,
like great
no, you're
answer.
the
That'd be
first
great.
one, Matt. You're the first one that
All
can
right,
talk
I'll
about
set
whether can.
benchmark. You said you like benchmarks, so I'm the benchmark.
um, so and also it's coming across that there quite a wide range of different things that you're. But I suppose from your point of view, a business is a business, isn't it? And an approach is approach. It doesn't really matter, does it? At the end of the day, whether they're producing a widget or a service or an idea. Am I right in saying that?
You're right in saying that. It depends on how they think of themselves and how they structure themselves. For example, a lot of startups, as you traditionally consider them, yeah, they'll be companies, right? They're designed to be for profit. Maybe they're in the on the side of the angels, not angel investor, but they have
Yeah.
good intentions in mind primarily, and so they'd be like a B Corp or something like that, like a benefit corporation, structuring like that. Others are startups that become nonprofits, and that's what they have in mind. It's not necessarily we're going to make an investor return. It's that we're scaling to the point of break even, right? And we've got philanthropic or government resources in mind to be doing that backing behind their mission work. I primarily it probably is intended to be for profit. I do imagine so.
Yeah.
Yeah, but there's a variety of structures that one could take under that. In addition, some startups, they'll be almost serial entrepreneurs where they scale to a certain degree, but it's not with the idea of changing the entire game once they grow their business because it is an entirely different game then, right? You've got
Mm.
headcount, you've got to be paying salaries, you've got to do customer acquisition in every direction. You're thinking you've got different market positioning.
Yeah.
Um, Comes a different game when a startup's not a startup anymore. And some folks are just really good at doing that very initial piece of it and then just selling the business, right? Because the
Yeah.
majors, if you've got a good idea, then they will snatch it up.
Yeah.
And then, well, if you're like a serial inventor or a visionary, I mean, you could just take that in a different direction after that, use that money for the next project, so to speak. So
And is there an ideal starting point for someone for you to be engaged, or does it not matter?
for me to be engaged, if history of the past year serves as a guide, it doesn't matter in the slightest, because they do seem to be at different points in their own
Yeah. Yeah.
personal professional missions, and so that's just been an interesting thing to observe.
And do you find when you start getting involved, it starts to accelerate in the right direction or not?
Well, I hope so. I mean, if I was being honest, it's like, oh, it probably reflects the universe of the general population, right?
Yeah.
I can't claim a perfect batting average. I wouldn't claim a perfect failure rate either, and nor would I put it all on myself. Again, there's a lot of variables in terms of where their starting point is,
Yeah.
what they're actually going toward, and what they're seeking from me. Really, is it we need assistance with grant writing, right? We're applying to accelerators, or is it more a matter of networking? We need you to introduce us over here, here, and here, or can you knock on 1,000 doors in this direction, right? We
Hmm.
need to do business development. So, what is asked of me can actually be really different based on what the need is within a given startup, which are always constrained in terms of the cluster of people surrounding them, um, who's willing to give their support at that stage when there's not necessarily a steady paycheck or any paycheck at all, when they're very future focused and looking toward, okay, we can create something that 5 years down the road, who knows, this will be the next billion-dollar company because we think we have a great idea. And so a few of them are at that stage, right? Where maybe they'll be more modest than that, but okay, we are essentially doing this on our own shoestring right now because we know we've got a good idea. This could either be sold later or we could keep all our hard labors and not work for a paycheck, so to
Yeah.
speak, right? Not have those shackles, but instead be liberated to start one's own enterprise and pursue the market. I've met amazing people over the past year doing that who are extraordinarily driven, each with their own personal and professional missions. So, yeah, it's been an honor to simply get that exposure to people.
Yeah.
Um, these sorts of early visionaries who see something, right?
Are we
It's
seeing
fun.
any themes of these businesses like in the renewable world? Are we seeing the theme of say batteries or solar? Is there a theme that you're seeing? You think, oh, here we go again, another solar system or another. Is there a theme that we're looking at?
There's not necessarily a theme for me other than climate tech writ large, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Which, you go back further in time, it's clean tech or renewable energy or alternative energy or alternative technology. Um, it, when it comes to that, no. Actually, I got exposure to a lot of that just recently through the New England Regional. I saw some great companies out there. I mean, some are very much in the engineering and invention sort of realm with we've got a new form of thin film right here that's got some novel applications that aren't yet in use in the market or that we think we can do 10% better on than rival companies, that sort. In other cases, actually more frequently, at least in my recent encounters, it seems like it's the soft sort of technology. It's not necessarily the hardware, it's the connective tissue
Right.
to get existing commercializable technology into the hands of more customers. Let us be your concierge, your digital concierge, and hold the strings together for the incentives on the state level, on the federal level, on the local level, scope out a project for you just to make everything easy and as one click as we could possibly make it for the customer. I've seen a few like that. I've even heard of one use I don't I hope not to say too much. It's not like I'm
Yeah, no,
under
no,
a
I get that. I
non-disclosure
get
with
that.
anyone. It's just, but I happen to hear some ideas. Like using a sort of lidar technology to just scan a house, and there you have your efficiency audit, and we know exactly what's going on right here. And we could put the heat pump over here. And actually, yeah, it was very much oriented in that direction. Is not taking up hours of a customer's time with having someone walk through the house and
Yeah,
where should we place the heat pump, but knowing almost instantaneously through sensing technology. So the use of new sort of software and sensing technologies seems to be where it's at a little bit more so, at least as
yeah,
far as what I'm exposed to.
yeah. Can we? There's in the back of my mind. So I feel that we've all got this um task, okay, to reducing. The ultimate task is to avoid climate change and avoid and improve sustainability. So I feel there's three groups of people out there. As a group, you dovetail across that group, I feel, and that is you got the energy management side, which is where I feel I sit in. So I'm within the team whereby we're managing organizations' third largest cost, consumption, cost, carbon. You then got on top of that, or next to us, you've then got the renewable guys, solar, batteries, wind, geothermal, hydrogen, everything in that sector delivering that. And then you've got on the other side where you've got making everything regarding the environment. So looking at plastics, looking at trees, looking at how we could sustain rivers, etc., and seas, etc. So these three approaches. Where do you think majority of all of this clean tech ideas, what categories are they sitting in, or is it across the whole piece?
So the multiple choice, and then you add to the end, just like none of the above and all of the above, right?
Yeah,
So I'm going to have to do all the above, right? I mean,
yeah,
what else
yeah.
can I
So
do?
are they fitting in? So everything that's coming to you is you could pigeonhole them in all the different slots. Yeah,
I would imagine, yeah. You got some amazing energy management and building thermal and building energy management companies out there that are innovating every day and finding
yeah,
better ways to do this.
yeah,
When I'm exposed to that, I'm almost a little bit surprised because you wouldn't be in that field, but hasn't that tool already been invented, right?
yeah, yeah. And why
Isn't
isn't
someone already doing
and
that
why
sort
isn't
of
the
thing?
manufacturer doing that? That's what I
Right.
always come up with. What if you've got this great technology? Why isn't all the boilers, all the chillers using that technology? It's
Right.
not in their interest, maybe. I don't know, but
And is it just a case of economics, or is it that they needed to get approached at the right point in the sales cycle or development cycle for that given project? And that would be nice if we could do that, but the property owner didn't sign off on that given thing because I don't want to think about another thing right now. I'm
yeah,
busy with all this over there. A lot of times it's just human behavior like that in terms of um, are you going to go deep enough when it comes to those energy improvements? Certainly on renewable energy. And then you've got those interesting commodity questions of where do you slot in stuff like hydrogen
yeah,
as like storage or energy medium. I was going to joke earlier in terms of my professional hats I wear, and I'm like a hack lawyer, a hack financier, a hack marketer. I was going to say I'm also like a truck driver who drives hydrogen around, but that would have been a complete lie. So there would be on the renewable side, definitely those next frontiers. There's way more room, of course, for solar and wind power. You probably discussed that with others. I mean, the main barrier right there to terawatts of power coming online here in the States
yeah,
is the interconnection queue. So it's not necessarily let's invent a better mousetrap. It's like let's just enable them. Let's get them
yeah, yeah,
into the game a little bit faster. But there are other complementary technologies like storage, which is huge right now. I've just recently been learning the U.S. is punching above its weight in terms of its storage manufacturing capacity.
mm-hmm.
Like we're doing pretty well right there. There's hydrogen, which we just talked about, which is storage medium or potentially a generation component for thermal. Um, there's geo, here in the Rockies. We've got a ton of resource over there, and hydrofracking technology, which could actually be repurposed from natural gas and maybe move it over to that. There's new frontiers that we could definitely get into on environment, on energy, on environment. Not shouldn't be left out of the equation by any means, right?
No.
And that's not only because it's important and we love it. And when we plant more forests, then they act as carbon sinks, and maybe that can mitigate climate change. But also, we're starting to get to the point where we need to adapt to climate change at the same time, right? It's getting more and more obvious that we need a buffer against resilience,
Mm.
more volatile storms, um, the changing weather patterns, things like that. And so, um, the role shouldn't be understated of how much needs to happen when it comes to the insurable surface of Earth and making sure that humanity can reside on as much of that as possible, as long as it can, productively and harmoniously with what's around it.
Yeah.
I think
Is
that
there
was key. That was all of the above.
That was all of the above. You covered everything. Thank you for answering that so comprehensively. Now, I'm going to change the tact. I like doing that. I like changing the tact of my questioning. I'm going to pick up on. So you talked about mentoring. That's really close to my heart. I believe when you've got a skill, we need to be bringing that skill and sharing that skill with other people. So, is there anything like we would have? Hopefully, someone listening to this conversation today. Okay, I say today because it could be 2 weeks' time and it could be today when they're listening to it. So they're listening to this today. They
Or in
think,
the Library of Congress years from now. Yeah.
yes, I've got an idea. What do I do with it? What do I do with? Is there some? If I had an idea today and I said to you, Mac, what can I do with this? Is that something you could say? Can you give them some advice this minute that would just instantly make them think what they could do?
Yes. Let me take that in a few different ways, consistent with you switching things up. Number
You're not allowed to
one,
switch the answers around, by the way.
yeah, so now all the above is A and none of
Yeah,
the
yeah,
above is
yeah.
B. Number one, believe that you've got something and that you're
Right.
onto something, right? It starts with the internal game, actually, and keeping yourself in the game. I just, again, last week, I was at the regional accelerator, and two of the folks who impressed me the most, they were specifically mentors to startup founders, but about the mental game in being a startup founder and
Uh-huh.
what that takes to actually prepare yourself psychologically and I suppose physically, have your proteins when it comes to having the durability to form a startup, right?
Right.
Because it's not going to be for everyone. And so that is where I would start right there is start with you. Make sure that if you can't knock on a door of the major of one of the majors and sell your idea to them on the first go, that you're prepared to do it again and again and to
If
refine your product and be iterative so that you'll be able to get there because
mm,
it always takes a few steps, right? Um, that would be my major piece of advice right there. In terms of the more tactical stuff, yes, most I would say developed and even developing countries right now have some sort of overlay of folks who want to help, right? Like startup accelerators or even prior to that, incubators, co-working spaces, places where you could germinate or ideas with other people who are in similar situations as yourself in terms of being early stage founders, learn what works and what doesn't in terms of maybe not your exact technology, but the broader ecosystem of, okay, where's this going to fit and how do I make it fit?
mm,
What is a template legal document or equity document even look like? What kind of homework do I need to do in order to start thinking about that? At what stage is a patent application appropriate? Um, those sorts of considerations are good to germinate inside incubators. And then there's obviously accelerators out there with coaching, mentoring, lots of the hand holding through the process and introduction to networks, be it of other companies in those networks or investors.
Mm.
And then more advanced stages like startups or prize opportunities where, yeah, they specifically want a piece of you. And are you ready to hop into the Shark Tank and say, oh, okay, I'm ready for 5%, 10% of my company in perpetuity. If you're willing to seed me with 100,000, 200,000 of pounds, dollars that we could use to get going, as far as either simply living for a founder or showing those results through building out a tech stack or hiring services such that you could slot that in to your operations and scale it to such degree that you can attract even more interest in investors as well as a book of business.
Yeah.
I hope that's sufficient for me.
Yes. No, no. I like the way to start. It's with a you're ready for the bumpy ride, basically, because it could be bumpy, could be smooth. You don't know. No one knows, do they?
I feel
What
like
is going to be expected, but they need to be prepared for a ride of their life, maybe.
you better believe it. And I forget the statistic, but what, maybe 90% fail.
Yes.
When it
Yeah.
comes to, I've
It's
got
been
an
realistic
idea
with
for,
people, isn't it?
yeah, this is a renewable energy fountain pen. This will make $1 billion. And now let me try it. No, it's not going to work. So,
Yeah. I
in
understand
much
that.
more rational ideas. And, you got to be prepared to fall on your face if you're going to step out there.
Yeah. Yeah. So I know you've just given us some insights. Just touch on one more thing, really. The biggest thing that's just come out of this from me, I'm not a financial, I'm not a mentor regarding that and helping people regarding startups. However, everything you mentioned there, I understood the wording. Okay. I don't know how, probably for all the many podcasts I've been doing and the people I've spoken to. So the vocabulary is the biggest thing. I think it's going to, if you start talking to these guys straight away and you start talking about seeding, incubators, you know, there's, and they're going to think, wow, what's going on here? There's a little bit of a stepping stone for them to understand some of the terminal. I presume that you would have to change your approach to that as well when you're dealing with this. If they don't understand all this wording, you're going to have to take a step back and actually make it understandable for them, aren't you?
I mean, you'd have to. Otherwise, they're going to be like, this guy's going to run circles around us and take our whole company from us. He's just
Yeah,
using a bunch of vocab words.
yeah.
Uh,
You're just going to scare them, aren't you? You're going to scare
exactly.
them
Can't
away.
scare them. And, my advice on that, I suppose, would be talk to people, right?
Yeah,
Have as many conversations with as many people as you possibly can, whether it's at your level or below if you feel like you could be a teacher, and certainly above. Be willing to be the dumbest person in the room that raises your hand and ask that question that
yeah.
nobody else thinks should be asked because somebody's got the answer already, and
And
maybe I don't know
and be
everything.
open with everyone, and
I'm
say,
totally open with
when
everything.
you're saying about these wordings, you explain them. I'm happy for you to ask the question and be open with me. That's important, really,
Exactly.
isn't it?
Yeah.
It's common sense, isn't it?
It is common sense. It's not just startup life. You want to know something, you ask,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
You want to germinate ideas and break out of your own head as far as, I think this must be a great idea. I don't know what to take it or where to go. I'll just do what I already know and keep on going down whatever rabbit hole that is.
yeah,
I've now engineered 0.25% improvement in this product, even more so. It's only taken me 2 years, but I still don't have any connections over here or book of
yeah,
business.
yeah,
Um, as one example, um, talk to people. So actually, some of the most successful people I know are some of the most dauntingly impressive ones. Talk to absolutely everybody.
yeah,
And even if it's not of immediate value to them, still being able to put yourself out there for unfamiliar conversations, that's where some of the real gold is found.
Yeah, brilliant. So, Matt, it's come to that time in the interview where I put you on the spot. You're going to laugh because I've already asked you to give something back already. But
I've been
is
on
there
the spot.
anything? Is there anything you can put? Is there anything you can give back to the industry and people listening today as a takeaway from today's conversation?
There's room for optimism. There's always room for innovation. We've never reached the end of history. There's always more to go.
Yeah,
And there's more generations of people and biosphere around us to help and support. And the more you give out, the more you give back. How's that?
brilliant. And have you written any books around this? Any text around this subject?
Not
You
that I'm
talk very
aware of.
fluently on it, don't you? What do you mean? Not that you're aware of.
Well, I could put together a whole bunch of scratch pads that are only legible to me, and who knows? Maybe eventually I could form a manuscript. I have no idea.
Right. I
But
think you should
the short
actually.
answer is no.
I think you should. How to book, because the way you're talking about this is very clear. You come across very clear. You explain everything. You have your stages to explain the answers, which I think comes across very, very, very good. I like it.
You're far too gracious, Mr. Webb.
Matt, there's one more question I'm going to ask you, and I want to know what the guitar is behind you. What's that about? Is that yours? No, the other
uh,
side, the one that looks like on your left shoulder, looks like you're going to pick it up and start playing it.
I can't in front of you because I need an amplifier, and that's its whole. I need to do some stuff with it. But yeah,
It looks
Ibanez bass
beautiful, by the way.
guitar, Ergodyne. It's unique, right?
Yeah,
I
it's
think it's
beautiful.
slick. I like this. So I started in middle school playing guitar. My parents wouldn't let me get one unless I took lessons, which
Right.
was prescient on their part. Like I had to stay with it, right? And so that got me into guitar. Did high school jazz band for 4 years. I formed like a punk band, a hardcore band, and I was doing my thing as a youngster. Um, Kind of set it down for playing organized past that, but then eventually
That looks
moved
like a
into
bass. Is that a bass guitar?
exactly. Eventually moved into bass guitar. Number one because of market need. Guitarists are everywhere, right?
I
You need a
love it.
drummer or a bassist
You're
or something
even
like
thinking
that.
about startups still, aren't you? You're there. You're there, man. I love it.
There, and it's fun. So yeah, I've been doing the slap bass thing, getting more into that,
Brilliant.
finding some funky rhythms. Yeah, so
So I
I've
used
been
to
enjoying.
like Level 42. The lead singer of that was a bass player. Do you remember them? You're gonna
You're
have to,
backward looking, and for me, level 42 is going to be forward looking. I'm looking forward to checking them out.
yeah, you need to look because he was very good at the bass player.
Oh, nice.
I recommend you go and check that out. So Matt, thank you very much for sharing with us your knowledge and coming on to talk to us today. Thanks for that last little bit about the guitar because I think that shows you as a person. You're getting hold of something and you're driving it forward. So that's brilliant. Thank you for your time today. It's been great.
Bless your heart for the invitation. I appreciate it, Paul, and thank you for the level 42 recommendation as someone who's about to turn 42. I've got my own special takeaway from you on that in terms of how I'm
Brilliant.
going to level up. So thank
Excellent.
you.
Give us gain. And Matt, you and your family stay safe in these times.
As well as you, sir. I appreciate the invitation.